Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Arthur Brooks, president of the American Enterprise Institute, and it is a distinct pleasure and honor to be with all of you today and with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as well as a panel of distinguished guests in this session and the session that follows with the Mind Life Institute. This is a historic day for the American Enterprise Institute. We're joined with one of the most respected religious leaders in our world to talk about the issues that are pressing against us in the wake of the international financial crisis in a session entitled Moral Free Enterprise, Economic Perspectives in Business and Politics. Why are we here? We're here to talk about what matters to us the most. Right now, we have an opportunity at this historic juncture in world economics to talk not about money, just about money, and not just about business practices, but what concerns us the most. Our friends at the Mind Life Institute have shown us very clearly that there are certain things that are most concentric to human happiness that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has talked about for many years. What are they? Faith, family, community, work, not money, interestingly. Now, as the president of the American Enterprise Institute, as an economist, it hurts me to tell you that money's not on the list. Yet it's true. It's true. Why is that? Why is work on the list of the most important things for human happiness when it's not money? And the answer is earning our success, the belief that we're creating value with our lives, and we're creating value in the lives of other people. If we can earn our success, if we have the dignity as individuals to do this, nothing can hold our world back, and there is no greater exemplar for this set of ideas than His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Yet the system that we believe can make this most possible, the free enterprise system, is under question today. It's under question because people feel legitimately that they have been left behind in the wake of the Great Recession. So here's the question. Is the free enterprise system still the best system to pursue our happiness, to lead a good life? Have we become too materialistic? Do we need to reorder our priorities toward higher ends? We have a panel of experts to discuss this with His Holiness. Now, to begin with, of course, we are joined by none other than the Dalai Lama. You're all aware of that. The Dalai Lama, the 14th Dalai Lama, became the leader of the Tibetan Buddhist faith in 1950. In 1959, he was forced to leave Tibet because of persecution. And since that time, he has maintained the Tibetan government in exile in Dharamsala, India. He travels the world almost all year round, advocating for the welfare of the Tibetan people, a noble cause, teaching Tibetan Buddhism, and talking about the importance of compassion as the source of a happy human life. Tashi Dele, Your Holiness. We're also joined by three leaders in academia and business.
Do you know the meaning of Tashi Dele?
Hello and good morning.
I think not only that, I think love that. Tashi is that Tashi, Sadi, Geshin Shiva. Geshin Shiva on any Deshin level.
The literal meaning of the phrase Tashi Dene, Tashi stands for auspiciousness, and Gelek stands for well-being and happiness. So being happy and well through auspiciousness.
Okay.
I love that. This is such a good day. This is I just can't tell you people. Anyway, but I digress. We're joined on our right by some of the most distinguished members of our academic and business community. Glenn Hubbard, right to my right, is the Dean of the Columbia Business School and former chairman of the President's Council of Economic Advisors. Next to him is Dan Loeb, the founder of the hedge fund Third Point Capital. And on the far end is Jonathan Haidt, the Thomas Cooley Professor of Ethical Leadership at New York University's Stern School of Business. All three of these men have done foundational work in their respective areas of administration, policy, academia, and business about the nature of human happiness and the morality of the free enterprise system. And each one will give their perspectives in about 5 minutes of the work that they've been doing, followed by comments from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, interspersed with questions along the way. And if we have time, some questions from the audience. Now, that's not necessarily the case, but don't be disappointed because we're going to follow this with a second session from our wonderful friends at the Mind Life Institute. an extraordinary organization that has completely changed the debate about the conjunctions between psychological life, the human brain, and the nature of a truly flourishing existence. So we have a lot in store for you today, and we're delighted to be with you and His Holiness. Your Holiness, would you like to start with some opening remarks?
Nothing. For me, new day start, so I'm looking forward more sort of because of serious discussions. I think after all, the very purpose of such meeting is to try to seek the right method to bring happy life, happy individual, then automatically happy family, happy community, happy nation, then ultimately happy world. We are part of the world. So, happy world. From where start? From government? No. From United Nations? No. From individual. Humanity is combination of 7 billion individuals. So change or constructive work must start from individual. Then we can make little contribution. Then from here, from there, from all sides, no matter what their profession, what their sort of nationality, what their religious faith, we are human beings. That I feel most important. Just when we are coming, he asked me, what do you feel, Washington? Good. I say, good. Then he say, some people not very happy because there are too much politicians, you mentioned. So then I responded, a politician is also a human being. On that level, no differences. So I always look on human level. Then no demarcation, no differences. If you too much sort of emphasis on secondary level of differences, then there are a lot of things. Different nationality, different belief, and different, even same belief, same nationality.
No.
The difference of family background. Some are a little bit richer, some are poorer, some are better sort of position, some are little. And then, even within the family, the differences. Even one individual, there are always the differences. Thinking, morning thinking, something different. Afternoon, you see, due to certain sort of, I think, new knowledge or new experience, and differences. So difference is always there. So I think essentially, we need cooperation, humanity facing some problems, including nature disasters, because of climate change, due to global warming. So more nature disaster, I think, come. Then also the population increasing. So there are, I think, not like ancient time. Ancient time, firstly, American native people, they remain peacefully. Then some people come from outside. Okay, still, America, I think like multiracial. Multiracial like that, and build this new wonderful nation. But more or less, you see, in America, south and north is surrounded by sea. So safe, not much sort of concern about other world. That situation completely changed. Now reality, east need west, west need east, south need north, north need
south.
south. So that's reality. So century-old thinking, we and they, is actually unrealistic. Now we must think entire 7 billion human beings. We must consider part of we. That's my fundamental belief. So no problem. But the politicians, or whether you see a little bit sort of strange person, still person, human being. Clear?
Clear.
So the main purpose, you see, we have to sort of look seriously about the future of humanity, at least this century. Now we already enter 21st century. Now remaining the century, I think like past 20th century becomes something very, very kind of the turning point century. Now this century also, you see, should be. So in the past century, a century of violence, century of war. Now this century now should be a century of peace. Peace not come from sky. Since the violence we created, so peace we must create it. Peace only come through our action, not through wishful thinking or prayer. I'm Buddhist in my daily life, about 4 or 5 hours prayer, meditation. But all your wish will materialize through prayer. I don't believe. Buddha, as a Buddhist, Buddha emphasizes your action is the most important. Buddha cannot give you what you want. You must make effort. So Buddha says, you are your own master. Of course, then, according to those believers, believe in Creator. So wonderful. Some my friend, since we all created by God, so we all have sort of some kind of spark, right? Spark of God. So that sort of concept really gives us courage, self-confidence. And then, what is the nature of God? Infinite love. So if you really believe that, you must be more compassionate person. Nobody say Creator is full of anger. No. Full of compassion. So Creator is such. So therefore, we creatures, you see, must, you see, follow. You see, Creators or what's it?
Example.
Example. So wonderful. But then non-believer, whether we believe religion or not, we are human beings. Biologically, we equipped it human affection. And also everybody is to come from our mother. So in our life, the beginning of our life, the mother's affection is so important. I always telling those people who received maximum affection during childhood, early period, early life.
Age.
I think in deep inside, much happier than those individuals who early sort of age, the lack of affection from parent, particularly from mother. Then I think that experience remains whole life. So in deep inside, some sense of insecurity. So in any way, so believer or non-believer, we all have the same potential becoming more compassionate person. So our life starts that way. Now, for that, I think our scientists sort of friends, I think through their own sort of the experiment, they have to say more thing to say. So I also learning from them. So I'm looking forward to our discussions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Holiness. We're going to turn now to our panel to provoke some of the wisdom of His Holiness on the basis of what their work is showing to them today about our economic system, about the world economic crisis, about the morality of our system, and a better world. And we're going to start with Glenn Hubbard. Glenn Hubbard is the Dean of the Business School at Columbia University. He has been the chairman of the President's Council of Economic Advisors under President Bush. He has held a number of distinguished positions and is the author of many books. Glenn Hubbard.
Thank you very much, Arthur. And Your Holiness, I know I speak for the entire audience, and we're grateful to you for this engagement. And Arthur, I'm grateful to you as well because, frankly, your work is taking economics out of the dismal and bringing it back to happy. So that's a good thing. I wanted to talk about really a five-step argument that I have made, at least in my professional career and research, for the morality and economic success of the free enterprise system. My charges in the university are largely young business people, but I confess to you that my favorite teaching is to slip into freshman principles of economics and talk to the youngest students. And I always say to them, I'm coming with two questions, and they were the questions that drew me to economics. The first is, why isn't the whole world rich? It's a very deep question. It's easy to say. And the second is, what could we do to achieve mass prosperity in any society? And I tell them, if they hang with me, we'll answer those questions together. The first point I wanted to make was that free enterprise economies have demonstrated both absolute and relative success in both generating prosperity and alleviating poverty. Economists will tell you that the first, second, and third industrial revolutions were made possible by economic institutions, by the support of property rights, and the defense of individual economic freedom. We've seen that extreme poverty alleviation in China, in India, in sub-Saharan Africa has been made possible not by government action, but by an opening of markets and the restoration of individual freedom and commerce. And on the negative side, we of course have the spectacular economic failure of the Soviet Union's collapse and the clear case study of North Korea's ongoing failure, having started essentially in the same place as South Korea. Second point I would make is that free enterprise is critical for the economic success that can fund both the market goals that many in this room work on and the very important social goals that His Holiness brought up in his remarks. Entrepreneurs are not people who are directed. They are people who have an uncoordinated search for opportunity. And market-oriented financial systems do two great things. One, they advance prosperity by investing in firms that become successful. And frankly, by allowing weak or outmoded firms to fail, they advance society. This is about dynamism. Economists often talk about creative destruction, the new replacing the old. But I like to talk about non-destructive creation, brand new things that create visions. That is the source of innovation and wealth. It's also about happiness. My Columbia colleague and Nobel laureate in economics, Ned Phelps, has noted many times that satisfaction in an economy is highly positively correlated with measures of its dynamism. Third point is that I have many concerns for statist economies today. The lack of incentives for innovation, for entrepreneurship, leave both consumption possibilities and living standards lagging. Traditional approaches to foreign aid in those societies relative to encouragement of business or of entrepreneurship have largely failed. And large government roles invite rent-seeking and corruption. And by the way, that is a lesson that this country needs to take heed of as well. But I would also say that capitalist economies face a number of cautions. We have been very good at generating average growth, but not everyone is average. Economic inclusion, by which I would mean the ability to obtain meaningful work, is an objective that has to be maintained with dynamism. A social safety net is important, but what's all the more important is the ladder to get to work. Work is the symbol of advancing economic mobility. It's also the symbol of advancing social mobility. And free enterprise societies need to contemplate a Marshall Plan almost within themselves to advance the work opportunities of the least well-off. The final point I would make is that while economists like myself often talk about economic efficiency or prosperity in economic terms, I think one can go back to Adam Smith and classical writers in my profession to make the defense a moral one. Smith called natural liberty the power to buy and sell, take or leave a job, and make a deal with whomever you like. That's not just a feature of commerce. It is a feature of a moral society. Dignity is also a symbol of a free enterprise society. Markets promote mutual respect for each other's talent, for each other's energy and hard work. Arthur has said many times, and said it well, that earned success, or the fruit of your own creativity, is an important moral and satisfaction objective, not just about GDP. And I would leave you with a couple of thoughts. Free enterprise societies tend to be societies that have more dispersed power. The power is spread out evenly in the population and not with a single controlling government or central planning. Central planning systems are less likely to reform, to adapt, to be present in the modern world, and a free enterprise economy has that natural buffer. To close where I began, our goal ought to be to celebrate the success of free enterprise economies, but stretch that goal of success to an idea of mass prosperity. I think that goal is morally right. I also think it's economically achievable.
Thank you, Glenn Hubbard. Your Holiness, Dr. Hubbard has told us that the free enterprise system is naturally the most moral of economic systems, but that we have much more to do to include more people in its blessings around the world. Do you agree with this? And how can we make it more effective?
Yes, I think. First, when you mentioned the 가서다 축산에 밑교 전부 밑축 제목이야 슬로송. 참 축부 찾으셔야.
His Holiness was interested by one of the questions that you asked your students. One was why.
I mean, you mentioned
why
at the beginning.
Yeah, why aren't everybody rich? Why haven't we been able to make everybody rich? So His Holiness was wondering, what sort of criteria are you using there in terms of someone being rich?
All I meant by the statement was the idea that why isn't the whole world as prosperous as the most prosperous countries? So why is it that the United States is a rich country, but other countries are not? What is it? It's a hard question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I when you use the word rich, as if you sort of, because of that meaning rich, a billionaire, then impossible. Everybody become billionaire, impossible. Then perhaps a millionaire. I think difficult. So at the basic, the basic point, yes, every human also the because of the activities, it's the individual
Initiative.
because of the initiative is very, very essential, as I mentioned before. So therefore, I think the whole world witness centralized economy, no matter how much the effort fail. Former Soviet Union, and then also we worked with China. So then, you see, they compelled to follow more new sort of pattern.
Pattern.
But that's more or less the capitalist system. I think Deng Xiaoping, very, very realistic leader. So he accepts the reality. So he has the courage, you see, to change the economic system like that. So that really brought a lot of sort of prosperity or economic development. It's clear. At the same time, the capitalist country, United States, most richest, but gap rich and poor, also you see quite big. So nowadays, I usually have some kind of headache. I don't know you see these things. India, during Pandit Nehru, let's see, he emphasized democratic socialist sort of country, a little bit sort of control by the government, not very successful. Then some change, it helped. So that is the fact. Reality shows, you see, the just socialist sort of thinking also is not because of that.
Efficient law.
Not efficient, and it just simply is the only the capitalist way. Also, you see some drawbacks. So now we have to sort of find more sort of the experiment or discussions. That we need more sense of concern of others' well-being, as I mentioned before, and finally, sense of humanity, concern of humanity, on the basis of sense of oneness of humanity. Then, of course, all our activities with that kind of, sort of motivation, then everything is become constructive. I think if there is some sort of little sort of because of the negative side things happen, then immediately pay attention and change, modify, isn't it? But I myself, I don't know. Unless I spend, you see, I think at least a few years study about world economics and become student of you. Otherwise, it's impossible, you see, to make so precise sort of comment these things.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
I see the beginnings of a joint op-ed here.
We turn next to the perspective of business. And Dan Loeb, who's the founder and chief executive officer of Third Point Capital, which is a hedge fund deeply involved in the finance system here in the United States. He has done work on both Eastern and Western thought and practiced it extensively in his own life. He's going to give us his perspectives on what we see in America's business community today. Dan Loeb.
Thank you, Arthur. And I just want to say, Your Holiness, it's an incredible honor to be here with you here today, the spiritual leader of the Tibetan people. I grew up with my dad, who would have been about your age today had he still been alive. He'd be so proud to see his son up here with you. It's really incredible. I carry that spirit with me. It's also incredible to be here with the spiritual leader of the capitalist people, Arthur Brooks. And it's a profound honor. I'm not sure my dad would be quite so proud of that, but he'd certainly be happy. So I started my fund in 1995 with $3 million under management. We've grown a bit over the years, but I started in June of that year, and I started practicing yoga, Ashtanga yoga, a few months before that. In fact, my yoga teacher, Eddie Stern, is here in the back of the room. And about 5 months after starting my business, fiduciary, I had other people's money under management, my yoga teacher convinced me to go to India to study yoga with a master of Ashtanga yoga, Pattabhi Jois, for a month. And it was an unusual decision. In fact, I got a call from one of my friends, a competitor in the business, who said, "Don't do that. That's a huge mistake. everyone's going to think you're a flake for leaving your business, going to India, studying yoga for a month. And remind you, there were no internet connections then. Cell phone service was non-existent. But concerns were well-founded. So I went anyway. I had a great month there, and it launched me into really a lifelong passion for spirituality, for contemplation, meditation, and I'm, I just want to say that contemplation and meditation, these things, they're not just for monks and for hermits. They're really for people. I think it can really improve all of our lives, and it can really improve us as business people as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some specifics around that. I'm going to talk about how contemplation makes us better decision makers, and why that's important in our system. And then I'm going to close talking a little bit about my experiences on the front lines of the financial markets and how this all kind of goes together. So just a couple quick lessons from yoga for me and why it's been crucial as an investor in being a better decision maker. One of the first lessons you learn in yoga, I think it was in the Yoga Sutras, it says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga quiets the fluctuations of the mind. And I think this is consistent with what His Holiness says, that you can't be a happy person if your mind is not at ease. The second thing that's very important that we learn from yoga is to put ourselves into difficult positions and to be able to create a sense of equanimity in those difficult decisions, situations, so that you can persevere and emerge from those situations making good choices. I was with a Navy SEAL last night, and he told me about his BUDS training and how it forges them like steel. Now, that's probably the appropriate training for someone who's a warrior, but certainly in life, there's other types of training, and certainly what the Dalai Lama teaches and what I learned from yoga is applicable for all of us to be better decision makers. Now, it isn't just a question of getting to the right outcome. One of the other things that we learn from yoga, and this is in the Upanishads, is that life in the Upanishads is described as a wheel with many spokes that come out of it. And at the center of it is your heart, which should be your moral grounding. And I think for all of us, certainly for all of us in our society, that is critical, is that when we make choices, they come not just from a standpoint of what's going to create a favorable outcome, but as the Dalai Lama said yesterday, make sure that we make decisions that do no harm. Make sure that we make decisions that are consistent with our moral framework, whatever that might be. So how has this helped me as a business person? So, on the one hand, we have I look at like three types of decisions that we make. One is the very core foundational decisions, which are easy. You're honest, you don't hurt people, treat people as you would like, whatever your framework is. The second are decisions which we can turn to a framework. It might be in sports. You're going down a hill. You know that there's a framework for how you ski, bend your legs, distribute your weight a certain way. Or in business, you may have things that you've seen time and time again, and you can do things consistent with that pattern. And then there's the third type of decisions. We all have them in our own world. For me, it's trading decisions. There's some of them they might fall into a very consistent pattern that we've seen before, but a lot of times it's just all new territory for us. And that's where this practice that enables us to be more creative, to be intuitive, to make these better decisions is really important. So why am I spending all this time talking about decision making? We're really lucky. As the Dalai Lama said, we live in a system that favors the individual. Not all systems, not all countries give us those choices. Glenn talked about the dispersion of power. That's key. having a system in which power is dispersed and pushed down to the individual makes for a more effective country, makes for more effective organizations, and it's really important. But you also have to trust individuals to make good decisions. So I'm going to pivot here to capital markets and why this relates. Well, obviously, I'm in the business of making many decisions all day long about people, about markets, about stocks, about all kinds of different things. I want to talk about the markets themselves and how they relate to this discussion of prosperity and flourishing, and why the markets actually make the world a better place. I think there's a common view that financial markets are good in the sense that, well, if somebody has a new idea and there's a venture capitalist, they can invest in the idea, and that man or woman can create a business around that. There'll be an innovation and growth, and new things will come. You'll get iPhones out of that type of system, and you'll get medical advances and everything from FedEx to you name it, are businesses that have been started from this type of framework. And that's key. And I think everybody kind of appreciates the importance of a robust venture capital market, IPO market, for that to happen. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Without a system that also provides for credit, that's another part, because once you've started your business, you need credit. But you also need this. These shares don't come out of thin air, and credit isn't issued out of thin air, and it's not just by banks. Institutions run by people make decisions to invest in equity, to invest in credit. So we need a couple conditions for that. One, we need robust financial markets where there's liquidity, and so that person who invests $10,000 or $20,000 or a few $100,000 in that startup knows there's the potential for the IPO and for it to go public. And down the line, the person who buys those shares needs to feel comfortable that there's rule of law and there's corporate governance. And sometimes these things people look at these things in isolation and they miss the importance of all of this. And this is key. I'm going to talk about two key concepts. One is liquidity, and one is the availability of low-cost capital. And those two things are critical ingredients to the system that we have. And they only exist if you have the rule of law, and if you have people that feel confident in the system that we have. So sometimes you'll see situations where creditors are treated badly, and you might feel like, well, who are those creditors? They're a bunch of vultures. They really don't deserve to get their money back. Let's just change the rules now. And you might say, well, those are unappealing people who are buying the credit. Let's just hang them out to dry. The problem is that the people who suffer are not just the investors in that particular credit situation, it's the entire system, because the entire system relies on the rule of law and the dependability and the knowledge that if they don't get their money back, there's a system where they can rehabilitate and restructure whatever it is that they've invested in. There's also the benefits of people who invest their capital. They're, for example, the people that invest, on whose behalf we invest, the pension plans, the retirement funds, individuals who are providing for their future. So it's a great system. There's no other system that can create the sort of prosperity that we have, the kind of innovation. It isn't perfect, though, and there are folks left behind. So I just want to close by saying what Glenn had mentioned how important it is, like we should have a Marshall Plan for this. The most important thing I see out there is education, to get people included in the system. And for me personally, my philanthropic energy is directed towards how do we get a broad base of less privileged people, folks that have been, kids and families who have been written off by the system. I'll tell you one thing, it's a myth that poor people can't learn and can't achieve at the same level as white rich kids. We have a school, I'm on the board of Success Academy Charter Schools. We have a school in the Bronx, in the poorest congressional district in the country, where our children just scored number 3 in New York State out of 3,528 schools in math, and 1 and 2 were gifted and talented schools. So it is possible. We need to work hard on educating kids. There's a lot of things. We can all do different things. Mine is education. I think that will help. We need a great safety net, but we need to, as Glenn said, bring as many people as possible into the system so they can all flourish along with us. Thank you very much.